Very well.
No?
Is it turned on?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, that.
troubleshooting.
All right. Hi, my name is Catherine Foster. I'm the Executive Director of the New Winston Museum. May I see by a show of hands how many people are here for the first time? Yes, wonderful. Welcome. Our mission here at New Winston Museum is to preserve, promote, and protect the dynamic history and diverse stories of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County through education and collaboration. We just celebrated our second birthday, so happy birthday to us. Let's hope we don't hit the terrible twos here. I don't think we will, but and along with that came the birth of our membership program, which I'm really excited about. So I have one copy of our membership brochure that's hot off the press. If you're interested in looking at it, you have to sign up for my email or my snail mail. So you can do that a variety of ways. We have a survey that we'd love for you to complete after the program. We'd like feedback about what you think about this program, as well as what we can do for future programming. And also, on the flip side, if you'll just put your address or contact information, however best we can get in touch with you, that'd be great. Now, a couple of exhibits that I want to talk to you about, specifically this one over here. Every picture tells our story. I welcome you to come back and really dig into this exhibit. We have program guides that really help describe what's going on in that. We are getting ready to unveil a new digital exhibit that's part of that, and I'm very excited about this because you'll really be able to go one step further beyond just the photograph itself and learn more of the stories and the people, and it's going to be a multimedia extravaganza. So we're excited about that. On our yellow walls over here, this is Chris Jordan, who is my Director of Education and Programming. This is his first wonderful exhibit, and it's called The War at Home, and it's the story of Winston and Salem during the Civil War. It's a great story, very in-depth, a lot of aha moments for me, and we're just really proud of it. It's coming down at the end of July and August, or maybe through August, we're not really sure. But we've had lots of school groups in here, and that's the point I wanted to drive home, is that this is an important piece of education, especially for 8th graders in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County. So if you have 8th graders that you want something to do over the summer, bring them here and Chris will spend time. So a few housekeeping points. Please enjoy the refreshments. We also have some information back there about Preserve Historic Forsyth and all the restoration programs. I just want to point out quick a couple of people in the room. I don't should do this, but Michelle McCullough is with City County Planning Board, and she has been spearheading the majority of this month's historic program. So thank you, Michelle. Jeff McIntosh, one of our council people, is very happy that you're here. You've been busy this month as well. So, and I know I have several board members in here. Can you raise your hand? Great. Thank you for being here. That's great. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass this on to our panel, and they're going to do a little self-introduction. So, thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me, or do I need this?
You need that.
All right. I'm Bryan. I'm co-founder of several small businesses in town. One being Cranky's Coffee. We helped start. We started Single Brothers Cocktail Bar, and current project is the Weston Millworks, which is first phase is well underway. Lots of exciting new businesses there. And, every one of them has been a rehab of an old building, so got a lot of experience on the ground of that. So thank you all for coming out this evening to hear some of the fun tales of fixing old buildings. I'm sure I know many of you have done it yourselves, so you know.
Hi, I'm Lynette Matthews Murphy, and I'm the founder partner of Springhouse Restaurant, Kitchen, and Bar in downtown Winston-Salem. I see a lot of familiar faces, and just a little bit about my background. That project probably was a culmination of everything I've ever done in my entire life, and it's been a joy to to share it with this community. And I want to thank everyone for all your support over the past 2 years. We'll go into some of our joys and dramas of rehab as well, but it's been a wonderful experience, and thank you. Thanks for being here.
Hello, I'm Kevin Owen, president of Owen Architecture, an architecture firm that's been in Winston-Salem for about 17 years now, and we have done about 100 or so rehabilitation projects in and around Winston-Salem, 2 of which were for these 2 folks.
That's great. Okay, well, we'll just go ahead and begin the discussion. I really loved when we met and we talked about certain things, and I learned a lot. Lynette, why don't you tell me a little bit about your descent into madness and how you got involved with the project?
Okay, this is going to be from the heart, and I see a lot of women out there, either my age or a little bit older. You remember when your baby was going off to college, and you were probably trying to think of what your next phase of your life was going to be about? That is really what happened with me. I had worked my entire life. I had wonderful, wonderful jobs in event planning, management. I had been with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, had managed the Visitor Center for many, many years, loved that experience, had almost a second career with the Downtown Winston-Salem Partnership with my dear friend Glenda Keels, and fell in love with the whole downtown revitalization issues that we were dealing with at that time. And this was back in the mid-90s, mid to late 90s, when there absolutely was nothing in our downtown. Many of you remember that. So we came up with some programming to do live music in the streets, and I see Kim Lawson back there, Kim Lawson Emmett, and so pulling this community together to come back downtown and enjoy what it had to offer, which was not much, but made them feel comfortable in coming downtown, was hugely important. I chaired the marketing committee for the Downtown Partnership, so we were just always trying to come up with new and exciting ways to help folks come down and enjoy downtown. But my love had always been hospitality, and so as I went through probably 10 to 12 years of running downtown events, I was thinking ahead as to how I saw my next phase of my career, and started percolating on this idea of having a venue where we could actually greet people, serve delicious food, have private dining, have special events. And for about a year, as I went on many, many runs, determined that that's what I would do. Well, I presented it to my husband. He loved the idea. When I said that I needed his office building to make my dream come true, he looked at me and said, no, that's not going to happen. So we were literally on a walk, and I will say to this day it was very fateful, because we were walking down Spring Street in downtown, and as I was telling him that I needed his office building, and he was refusing my idea, he looked over at the Bonson building and its decrepit, abandoned stage and said, that's your place. And I just, of course, I scoffed, because it seemed out of the realm of possibility. But he talked me into it. He talked me into coming up with the entire business plan and project, and through incredible help through Kevin, through the city, through everyone championing the project, we were able to make it happen in it took about 2.5 years, I guess.
Great.
That was very windy, and I'm sorry. That probably didn't even answer the question,
It
but
did.
that's why we are where we are.
John, what about you? How did you?
Well, it's just like Lynette, actually, my first building that I owned started with a walk. It was a walk when it was big, we had a big snowstorm and downtown was basically shut down. So me and my friends just kind of were kicking around, trying to see what could be seen. And there was a window broken out of the basement of the Swift building, which is where Cranky's is. And there was a for sale sign literally falling off of the building. And we kind of slipped inside, and some of you have heard this story, so bear with me. But yeah, we slipped inside and looked around, and it blew our minds. And we were in a rock and roll band, and that's what a great dream, and it has urban industrial space to play music in. So we were enamored, and I put on a shirt and a tie, went down to Snow Electric down in Brookstown, and met with the owners there, and asked them about the building, and they were nice enough to entertain this punk kid. But they were ready to get me out of their office too, and I come back, and I found this one thing that's worked very well in my life. It's just keep coming back. So I bugged it for about a month that I wanted to rent some space because I didn't know how to buy a building or do anything at that time. So he rented us the top floor, and from there we were in there, and the rest is a long, crazy, protracted story. But it started on a walk on a snowy day, and as some of you might know, getting into historic buildings, it's not knowing what you're doing is one of the reasons you can follow your passion and get in there. Because if you really knew what it would take to do it, how unrealistic and time-consuming it is, you might not get started. But then once you get through it, the rewards are exponential, and it's exponential in the community. But mine started. My first building was walking in the snow.
That's great. Started with a walk. Kevin, what about you? Do you find that you walk into kind of an unexpected situation, or do you have the eye that you can kind of figure out what the problems are when you walk into a project?
It's usually after somebody walks into my office.
Ah.
Then we go for a walk. I find it very exciting to go into that derelict building and to see kind of through their eyes how to make it happen. If I can understand the dream, it has to start with their dream.
Right.
Then you start doing imposing reality onto it.
Well, that's wonderful. The reality is actually my next question. Lynette, I'll ask you this question about, so you saw the Bonson House, it's this derelict building at the time. What were your expectations, and then what was the reality of the project?
Like I said, I think I had it completely in my head before I even had the place. I really felt like I knew what I wanted to create in terms of an incredibly authentic, welcoming gathering place with delicious food. Walking into that space, and a lot of you had been in it in its not so nice years. When the Bonsons built it in 1920, it was a showcase. It was beautifully done for his family, very livable. And so the family had it until about 1965, and then they donated it to the public library system. So the library had offices there for about 30 years. And like most county buildings, they could not quite afford the upkeep. And so walking through it, it seemed a very sad space. The library had to give it back to the county, or to the Winston-Salem Foundation, when they couldn't handle the upkeep. And so it had been empty for a few years. It was a very sad space, but there was something about it that just a beautiful space, beautiful light coming in. So I could immediately envision how it would transform into a restaurant and to a place where we could do very special events. When I and Kevin walked through it with me, it just lended itself to a lovely, gracious southern dining room almost, and so that's really the reality that has occurred there. We do have some pictures, and how many people have been to Spring House? Several. Oh, thank you. That's awesome. I really do believe that the vision that I had in my mind came through even more beautiful than I would have thought, but it is so close to what I wanted. So it has been a wonderful experience.
I have to ask, I grew up hearing that it was haunted. Is that true?
It is. It is. No, we do believe that it's Mrs. Bonson, and she died in a tragic car accident right after Bonnie Bonson, her husband, did. And so the family has indicated that they sensed that there was some very unease in the space. So they held a seance, and they said they actually spoke with her. And the librarians still come in to this day and say, tell us stories of being there later in the evening and feeling energy gusts or paper flying or doors slamming. And since we have been there, and I've spent a lot of time up in the upper area, the upper floors, of course, where my office is, and then it's very near where the servants' quarters were. That's kind of where the energy seems to be, and that's right where her master bedroom was. So, I try not to think about it too much because it does creep me out. But we feel like it's an incredibly positive spirit, and we talk to her. We say good morning, Mrs. Bonson, just in case. And I think, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I really do think that she would be very pleased, or she is very pleased as to what's happened to her home. It's a happy place.
John, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Hoots Project and kind of your work with Kevin and everything that has happened thus far?
Okay, yeah. The Hoots Project is a series of old industrial buildings that were kind of foreclosed on in Fallow, and actually bought the first one, the roller mill, and I think Jeff helped connect him to the opportunity of that one, and Dewey and I collaborated on several projects or proposed projects, and it started to crystallize. So we finally found a way to put the pieces together by the buildings. So we've got the old roller mill, and then we bought the building that the Weston Millworks is in, which was 30,000 square feet. We tore half of that down to meet our parking requirement, and then we bought the old Pleasance office, the old Gulf's office. So we've got a little campus going on. So with us, it was less of the crystallized vision of what was going to be. It was more get it at a price where we could allow ourselves the space to figure that out. So I'm kind of one of our little niches is curating tenancy, and I think we did a pretty good job this last round, and we're definitely going in deeper in that kind of ideas, like get something, get it at the right price, get the right partners to help you translate what it can do, and then sort of work with the folks that are available to pick a tendency that will bring life to it. And one of my favorite books in architecture is it's not like a official architecture, it's How Buildings Learn. It's Stuart Brand, done a lot of things, did the whole Earth catalog and other things like that. But with industrial buildings specifically, like the Swift building or the Millworks buildings, the way they were built, they're extremely valuable to become other things. So they can learn, they can have many lives. And that just really resonates with me. In business, you take something that has lost its value and find a way to add value to it. It adds value to the community, but also to your bank account ultimately as well. So that's kind of how we got started with the millworks. We didn't know what the heck was going to happen there, but by buying it at the right price, it allowed us the time to figure out what was going to happen.
That's wonderful.
That's the question. Where are these projects?
Well, Weston Millworks is Northwest Boulevard. It's right behind Quality Glass. It's buffered by the creek, and
The old Chatham building or something?
it's near the old Chatham building. It's down the creek, more towards Haynes Park.
Do you remember what Pleasance used to be a long time ago? Pleasant Harbor? Yeah. With the big porch on the front?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In C Products,
Yeah.
it's on the other side of the creek, but you go down Canal Street.
Oh, it's back there.
Yes, exactly. That's why we bought it, because it was back there, and no one had thought about it for years, and it was all foreclosed and layer with complication, and it was the right price for us. So, but now it's become its own little district, and it's also kind of counterintuitive, but it's a pain in the ass to find, and it's off the beaten path. And in a town like this is a small town where you pretty much know very quickly the good places to go and the things to do. It becomes an adventure to find it until you find it. But it's actually worked well that way. It's like, oh, it's so hard to find. And we're like, well, we're so glad you found it. And then people complaining about it tell their friends, and the word gets out.
Right. Yeah, it's to be difficult to find.
Yeah.
People are there all the time.
Yeah, it's all the businesses there are thriving.
They are.
So they're actually making money. So that means they're going to keep paying the rent. So we're excited.
Kevin, I'd love for you to chat a little bit about some of your favorite details of both of these projects, whether it be something architecturally or just about the use of it. Just probably the clients.
Yeah, it's got to be the clients. The roller mill, we worked on the renovation of a big warehouse. That's where we started. And I think the biggest challenge with that and the excitement was to try to figure out what kind of spaces we could actually put in that building and still have the right number of parking spaces. It can't be too big, or we have to sprinkle it, and we do all kinds of just nuances that we had to deal with. And then tell these guys, and they started looking for those very tenants. And that's kind of the puzzle that we all put together.
He created maximum flexibility in the envelope, and we filled it with the most bizarre mix of tenants in any building in town.
And that was a whole lot of fun. So we enjoyed it. With the spring house, I think it was just the challenge of taking a residence and making it an assembly occupancy, making it a restaurant. And we had to add a stair tower out the back. We had to add toilets, and it just, it wasn't designed for that. And we had to strengthen the structure. We had a commercial kitchen on 2 floors in that building, and those were the challenges. That's what I love about doing renovation work, is putting the puzzle together.
What original pieces of the home are still in there? Much?
A lot.
Stairwell?
A lot, definitely. About everything. And in fact, that was part of the things we had to do just to keep it, to get the tax credits,
Right.
which was real significant for us, and quite a challenge. We almost didn't get them.
We were denied. Oh gosh, that was.
And that really is, I don't know, did you get the historic tax
Not
credits?
the mill.
Okay. Did you go after them or no?
Well, they would not. It wasn't standalone significant, and they wouldn't let us tie it, even though it was built for the roller mill as a warehouse. They were not allowing us to combine. So no, we did not. We tried, and
Well, that's such a huge element, and a lot of you that are interested in historic preservation know that's a real interesting topic right now. The state legislature, in all their wisdom, has decided that there's a sunset on the state tax credits. I understand that the governor is trying to put together a special program now, and some other, and Michelle's nodding her head. I'm sorry, I don't know the details, but I will say that in order for people like us to be able to do projects like this, those tax credits are critical. We went through the very specific steps so that we would apply for them. And at the very end of the day, North Carolina, we got North Carolina involved, the state involved, they approved everything. It was just, we felt great about it, and it went to DC, denied. I mean, 100% denied. So Kevin and I and Peter Marsh packed up and drove to Washington, and we went through the whole appeals process, and oh my gosh, I mean, they ended up overturning the denial, so of course it was accepted, and it was massive. It was over $400,000 of our project in credits, and that just cannot be understated. So, yes, Ms. Keels?
What were the denials based on? What did you do?
This is,
that
yeah, I'm gonna let Kevin address that.
Yeah.
It's,
That stair tower
Oh, was
up
that?
back, we had put that, and we had to close in the porte-cochere in the back of the building because we needed toilets. And we addressed those as best we could to meet the needs of our client and to be sensitive to the building. And when we were able to talk to the FAIA guy at the National Park Service, he obviously understood our challenge. And we just presented it exactly as we had gone through it before, and he supported it.
They got it.
I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but can we have like a 2 or 3 sentence update on what the tax credit looks like now? Everything's looking good?
put me on the spot. You want to do it? You want me? Oh, please,
Go ahead.
go ahead. Jeff, you want to do it?
I'll talk about it. What we've heard from a couple different quarters is that the current state of the credit will sunset, but a new format will come out, and this is on the commercial side. The residential side, I think, is still very much in peril. That could go away completely, which would really be a bummer. But the total amount of credit that you'll be able to get will come down, but you'll be able to get it in a shorter period of time. So there's a trade-off there. Right now, you have to recover it over a 5-year period, and it looks like the new regulations would be either a 1 or 2 year period. So you get your money back more quickly. So there'll be pluses and minuses on it, but it does appear that there will be some carryover. There'll be some new program that people will be able to take advantage of.
That's great. Thank you very much. Michelle?
Is that pretty close to right?
Yeah, that's great, that's great. And we do have some information on the back table. If you are willing to call your congressmen, senators, everybody, state legislatures, there's a sheet back there that has all the emails, that has an example of what you can say and everything. We just need to continue to encourage them. And again, the residential tax credit, they're talking about the commercial tax credit. It means when you make money in these projects, and again, like I said, rent in a restaurant. But if you're that residential, all of our great neighborhoods, we have 16 National Register neighborhoods. 14 of them are residential. People, renovate their houses. North Carolina is very fortunate. We have a 30%, rehabilitation tax credit. That means on those projects, when they spend $100,000, and that's very easy if you put on a new roof, electricity, new kitchen. Think about that if you go into one of these old houses and redo it. Very easy to spend, the $25,000 limit and then get the tax credit 30% off what you spent. We could lose that. And there are only a few states that have this kind of tax credit, and North Carolina's always realized it's a value because it helps us keep our, old housing stock. But it also allows these neighborhoods to allow new housing stock to come in. I mean, it really is a plus. So if you are interested in helping us with this cause, there is a sheet back there. You know, just let them know that you support it and you want them to keep supporting it. Again, Corey said that we need all of them to get the point. So there is information about there's some information about the tax credit. If you live in one of those old houses and you're just learning of this, or if you've taken a walk recently and seen a great building, we've got information about both those tax credit projects. And Preservation North Carolina put out a great piece back there, this color about projects all over the state. And you'll see, I mean, look at Innovation Corridor. That's happening partly because of these tax credits. They're using these tax credits, millions of dollars, you know, going into that. So we can bring these creative minds here. So anyway.
And it is so short-sighted. So whatever they get back in tax credits is multiplied millions in new investment. It's just very short-sighted.
So when we've talked before, the idea of a champion keeps on coming up. The champion of a neglected building, a champion, an advocate to support you during your project. John, I want to hear from both of you about, you know, who is your champion and why?
Well, obviously, your partners and your friends and your family. The first project, my mother sat outside and cried, wanted me to get a real job at UPS. Seriously, she's like, "What are you doing?" And I did, yeah. But we are very fortunate to have such an amazing network in this community as a community. Lots of layers to that. Very specifically, there was a great amount of wisdom in a direct advocate in a man, Bucky Fry, through inspections to help kind of translate the language of new construction and let it apply to, you know, rehabilitation, because there was a big gap, and that's why a lot of these buildings were vacant. The industry came and did their things, and, you know, some grand structures, but then they fell out of that lifespan, so they were sitting empty. And then when the next wave of kind of recatalyzing downtown came, it was like inspections and planning, and they just weren't weren't used to having to deal with the issues of rehabilitation. So they found a tremendously talented and intelligent and giving person to be in that role. And obviously, it all has to comply with code, it all has to be legit. But like, if you take the effort of going the extra mile to find one way to make it work versus find one way to not make it work, that man specifically is personally responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars of successful redevelopment in this town. That's my opinion, but there's probably data to back it up. Not every community has that. So a lot of inspections, well, you can't do that, and then, you know, when your money is on the table and the clock is ticking, everybody knows the time value of money and the stress of, you know, writing checks. Until you get it coming back the other way, a lot of things can die on the vine. So we're very fortunate to have that. And then, you know, back to my case specifically, I was a punk kid. I didn't know what I was doing. There were a lot of spaces, I still don't, but there were a lot of spaces around the country that were having that time of art spaces and folks, you know, doing avant-garde music and art and this and that. The only difference is we bought our building. So when we got into the trouble of not complying with fire code and, you know, legitimate problems, serious problems, they couldn't just kick us out because we owned the real estate. But all the other squats and, you know, show places, they had, those things have their lifespan and decay. We stuck around in Winston-Salem because we were in over our heads in a piece of real estate, and we had to make it work, you know. So, and then from there's been several incarnations of that. But, you know, that's getting in over your head back to the beginning. Like, if I would have known what it would have taken, would I have done it? Who knows? But the rewards are so much more full. But this community, besides that, you know, I definitely want to honor this guy. He's up on the wall. Phil Haynes was a tremendous advocate for us when we needed to kind of become credible. People think he gave us money. No, he did not give us money, but he knew he was a master networker and a mentor to me. So he put a light on our situation and said, this is important for this town. Let's make it work. Bucky Fry is a residue of that. Brilliant sort of strategies for funding things. He got Salem Electric to donate $20,000 to the downtown partnership to basically help us comply with code, and we got that as a loan. And then, I'm not a tax professional, I'm not sure anybody, but they also got the work. So brilliant stuff. But he's one, and he's a prominent diehard advocate. But there were a lot of not as prominent people along the way that just took it upon themselves to say, well, you're going to need some help, and when you do, come talk to me. Specifically like that. I had no idea I was going to need help, and they said, when it comes up, come talk to me, and I did. And they kept their word, and I kept mine. So Winston-Salem's unique in that regard, and that's why we're flourishing. One of the reasons why, this momentum that's here now is not a flash in the pan, I don't think.
Thank you. Lynette, do you have a champion that you want to put forward?
Well, I would agree with John. The first phone call I made when I realized that we had the building was Kevin, and I said, I need to call Bucky Fry. And so we all three of us entered that building together and just started the process. But he's incredible, and as John said, for the city to have that foresight to know that downtown in particular is a very unique marketplace and needed very specific help is very smart. Jeff's predecessor, Wanda Marshall, she was a huge advocate, and I don't know that anybody can pave the way for you, but they have conversations, and they speak highly, and they spread the word. So everything from zoning to the planning board, everybody was excited about what we were doing. There weren't a lot of naysayers, and sometimes you can get that in a project where it's like I said, dead on the vine, because it's like nobody believes in what your vision is. Glenda, I will always say that she was the one who really started my love affair with downtown, and I've learned a lot from her. And friends, family, it's just all, you've got to have all that support.
Kevin, do you have someone who you obviously love working with Bucky as well? It's a Bucky fan club.
Yeah, I think North Carolina implemented the rehab code several years ago. I think it was 2002. And it has just been wonderful. It's been wonderfully accepted by Winston-Salem's inspections department. And it's working through problems, not finding problems. A lot of inspections departments across our state just point out problems, and they don't offer any help with that. And rehab, you've got to work through things. Well, if we do this, can we do that? Not do that. It was fine for this so many years ago, and that's more hazardous than what we're trying to do. And now we have a means to do that.
Also dovetails into my next question about how we have policies in place that often kind of curb the spirit of entrepreneurship. And so just wanted, if you had any kind of feedback or words of advice on ways to rethink that for our future policymakers in terms of regulations, and what can we do to make it easier?
I mean, this is crazy. Very kind of midway into the project, we learned that it's particularly in our block of downtown, the water pressure was not what it needed to be. So in the midst of this entire restoration, the city fire department informed us that we had to spend $36,000 for a fire pump in our basement. That's a killer. That'll kill you right there. I know people are putting blocks in front of you to that extent, but fortunately we were able to do that. You know, I don't know what we would have done otherwise. So, but for the most part, I really do believe that we haven't seen that much blocking. I really do think people want things to happen in this community, so they're highly supportive. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, but I would agree. You know, financing these things is always difficult, and yeah, I could pick on the bankers and say that they're your friends too thick, but no, bankers helped us network that community and get that job done. And there are new tools that are going to help revolutionize some of this, and they're going to evolve as well. Like many of our tenants have done Kickstarters,
Right.
which is aggregating small donations, friends and family, people in the community to see a vision, and it's not an investment, so they don't get a dollar return. They might get an incentive, a T-shirt or an invitation to a pool party or something like that. But people have raised some of this gap money to help make their dream work, and that's going to get even more interesting in the future. There's now mechanism. There's one called Fundrise. Some young guys out of Washington D.C. and they're taking that whole idea and doing real estate with it. So, and they found a securities loophole where they can basically, it's an investment. So, and their platform is extremely sophisticated, where they take your money, they do all the back end legal. You're an investor. You walk by a building every day, and you're an accountant, but you love the building. You can throw in $1,000 to a Fundrise, and then you're an investor in the real estate. You could also be an investor in the Chinese restaurant that goes in that real estate, and then you make the gap to get the project done, and then they take the takeout's built in too, so you get your return 10%, 25%, whatever, and that's all predetermined. So that stuff's happening in other markets now. Eventually it'll happen here, but that stuff that didn't exist 10 years ago, and it's always, form follows function, form follows finance. If you can't pay for it, you can't build it or fix it. So, and banks generally like to build things that are McDonald's and Walmart, stuff that's proven, and that's fair enough. So we had help from wise and benevolent bankers to do West End Millworks and help with some gap loans, because we couldn't do it ourselves. And it is frankly about the money, honey. If you can't get the money for your project, it's not going to happen. So we had a gap loan. Some local foundations donated money to the partnership, allocated to this project, and it's not a gift, not a grant, a loan. Very important. The reciprocity of this is very important. So that's what helped make West End Millworks possible. And we all have, 100% personal guarantees on all the debt as well, so it's real. But the mechanisms are changing. It'd be easy to say, yeah, it's not easy to borrow money, but things are happening more quickly around that than even the banks understand. Like, these guys are raising millions of dollars to do real estate projects in really cool cities and stuff that, people would never just generally step up to underwrite. Kickstarter is a cool one. I think it'll probably phase out, or definitely more, but then there'll be half a dozen others to take up their place. But that one's been a cool one to help. And then the rest is just, the community in Winston-Salem is very uniquely progressive to help underwrite new ideas. We've got a strength there.
Arts and innovation.
Yeah, that's real.
So, one last question from me before I open it up. Lynette, what's next?
Vacation. We've got a couple of irons in the fire. We just have almost completed a little mini renovation on the old Pine Brook Country Club up Germantown Road. I never thought I'd say these words, we acquired a country club.
That sounds like a really good story.
Over wine. So that's underway. That's my husband is highly involved in that, and he's it's really turning that club around. They were in distress, and we had been members, and so I'm very happy to say that the membership is already up 45 people by now, and that's going to be a fun challenge, and it's a great sister location to Springhouse. You know, we can only accommodate up to about 100 folks, and there are larger events than that, so we're able to refer those up to the club. And you know, it's there's some great history up there too. It was part of the old Cox plantation, and it's a property that deserved to be saved and loved on a little bit. And then we are in the midst right now of turning a very nondescript, rectangular cinder block building at 4th and Spring, just a half a block away from Springhouse. We are going to transform that into Quanto Basta, a new Italian eatery, deli, market that we're very, very excited about. And wine bar, excuse me. How did I forget that? You know, and Kevin is working with us on that as well, and it just promises to be a very different experience than Springhouse, but one that I think will fit in beautifully with the location. We've got a big, beautiful 5-story Class A office building going up right in between the two properties, so I think that's going to be a really fun addition to downtown and to the community as well. So we're excited. But I do need a vacation.
Do you have other projects, or are you just continuing to work with Lynette on these, or do you want to?
Sorry, Ken.
Most of them are interior renovations, so there's nothing really big. You know, the Cupid Italian restaurant is the one that's kind of occupying our time right now.
We've got some stuff in the hood down around Cranky's. Yeah, the second phase of the mill is going to happen soon. The old roller mill, and that's going to be exciting. Hopefully in the summer we'll be rolling on that. It's going to be a challenge, but it's a beautiful building. Heavy timber construction. Came off the farm in Yadkinville that the Hoots family owned. And they built it themselves. One of the last roller mills around in the area, so that's very exciting. Got a little 2-story rehab behind Cranky's. We've actually got that going. Doing some renovation at Cranky's. We're expanding our roasting capacity, so we can't do it quite as small batches we used to, but it'll still be very, very high quality.
What's the problem you want to have?
Yeah, it's a very good problem. Just kind of have to look at things through the lens of manufacturing, which we've never done before. We bought that building with a handshake, and that was it. So it's come a long way. And then we're collaborating with Wexford in a building in the Bailey Power Plant, which is, I can't kind of let that out of the bag yet, but that's a very, very exciting potential project there. That neighborhood it makes me look like I was smart. Like what's happening around us is phenomenal. Like the quality of the rehabs and the dollar amount investment is just staggering. It's going to be a lot of fun down in East End.
Did we come up with a name yet for not West End, West, downtown West?
Well, yeah, so our little quadrant up there has been the neglected one as part of the downtown plan. It had the sexy name of West Mixed Use, I believe. So, it rolls off the tongue. But, met with Jeff and some creative folks, Jason the Academic Partnership. And we might have a nice little name to to hang out. I think it deserves that. It's coming together as a very unique part of downtown, and it should be more of a destination here real soon, and so that'll become a set. So any names, we're taking ideas at this point.
So, any other questions at this point? Yes, sir.
How long did it take to investigate for the
We're working on that. Spring House only opened 2 years ago, so it will be a while yet. And that's okay. You know, my husband will say to anyone who asks, he didn't do this for me to make a profit. He did it because he knew that I liked it. He's a sweet man.
I guess for me, it was sort of opportunistic. Once again, it's not what you sell it for in real estate, it's what you buy it for. So we bought stuff for pennies on the dollar, and it was a heck of a lot more work. And Jeff had a good phrase back in the day when he was giving us some advice about a project. It's like him and his wife doing many old homes. There's a 20% oh shit factor that you just, at the very beginning, with a historic rehab, just put that on the balance, factor that in from the very beginning. Because if it's an old building, it's going to cost you at least 20% more. But for me, there was a longer arc of time, so I had more sweat. The brains were requirement. Like I didn't need to raise the family when I started. So I've been building a lot of equity by rehabbing these buildings, and then it's also created a shell to house our ideas. So I've got multiple businesses that run in the buildings that we've rehabbed. So it's not a simple answer. Yes, it wasn't just have a business plan, fix the building, return on investment. I had a chaotic style. So buy a huge building that's really inexpensive. That allows you the time to figure out a way to make it profitable. And then that long term, the real estate is going to be very profitable. And I'm not interested in flipping stuff. So we're not buying stuff to paint it and sell it. It's like buy it, hold on to it. And part of the philosophy of that is like, yeah, some of the embodied energy in these buildings and the construction side, like the first building, it's got 8-inch reinforced concrete walls and floors and ceilings. So they didn't know how much concrete they had to use back then, so they used to use a little bit extra. And so you could literally park a semi truck and trailer on the roof of that building and they just hold it. But they don't build stuff like that anymore. So you just got, there are lots of layers, lots of factors to take into account. Didn't really answer your question directly. I don't know exactly the return on investment. It'll be substantial, but it's my time equation. It's going to take a long time. Western Millwork, it's going to take a long time for it to fully mature. So.
One is, what constitutes a building of work? And I understand some of these are uncommon. There's an awful lot of they are. And secondly, I know John, consistent phrases that the price is right. And I remember when I first came here 21 years ago, I looked at some buildings on Liberty Street, and it was unambiguously clear then that the price was wrong. And they're still empty, and the price is not higher. Is there anything that can be done about what I think is still a kind of core part of the city, which seems to be in the hands of certain people, and it's been empty for so long? We've seen this fantastic development on the side, but nothing forward. And I realize that's sort of a controversial question, but I just wonder what.
Well, it's real. It's that stuff will, there's been folks have had the ability to hold real estate for way longer than it should have been empty, conceptually. But then it's theirs. It's your right. You own it. But that's I guess it's not unique to Winston-Salem, but it's definitely prevalent here. People can sit on stuff forever, and a few folks have sat on stuff forever in a day. Fortunately for us, there's enough catalytic activity around those that they might get close to their pride and step off the dime, and then, you can't hide from the reaper, so some people are going to just die out. And so that'll open up some possibilities as well. Well, but it's just patience. Yeah, you can't really force the issue. I'm not really a fan of condemning structures from the city standpoint. That just is a whole nother crazy can of worms. But we went to West End Millworks, Eric. No one saw anybody. So you just try to find a spot that no one else sees a value. But yeah, there's some big holes in the thing. But with news like the Reynolds building and all these, the more that stuff happens, we're gonna kind of traverse those dead zones. And some of these buildings are literally falling down. So pray for high winds and it's some stuff you can't say. Like it's just too far gone. So that's where it's just like you got to sit down with your calculator and do the math. Unless there was a significant cultural kind of historical event, some things we waited too long. So, but it's hard to force the issue. I don't know how to do that.
Other questions?
Were there slides to you?
We have a few pictures of Spring House, some before and after.
I'm tricking you guys. You got to come down and see our projects. You got to see Craig in the door.
You got to find your way down there first.
First, you got to find your way there, and then you got to figure out which building it is.
Figure this out over here.
No, it's already good.
Oh, well, there you go. I just bought that the other day.
Nice.
So that's where we started.
She cleaned that pretty nice.
So we got the after and then the before.
Before, this is after.
So it didn't translate the order.
So the beautiful white oak floors are covered in a very, very ugly carpet when the library had it.
Save the floors.
Yes, you're right.
Wrong button. So there's that floor.
And underneath that flooring, what we found during the restoration is heart of pine throughout the house. So Mr. Bonson apparently, as his Bonson humidifier sold well and he did more and more and made more money, he covered the entire main level and second story with that beautiful white oak in a very thin furniture veneer quality that you could never find at this point. It's gorgeous. Now this was the family's, so that would have been before with all the little cubbies in what was the family's living room. And we converted it into our library bar, just paying tribute to our years as the library offices. Cozy little spot. This was the family's main dining room. It's a beautiful fireplace. All of the beautiful surrounds and mantles have been torn off and carted away. So we didn't know what the original fireplace looked like. So we used some creative license and kind of came up with a pretty classic mantle and surround. We also had to put, we decided to put the coppered ceiling in because of the huge steel beams that had to reinforce the second story. And so these are coppered ceilings now.
That was another thing.
We ran into some problems on that.
That was another thing that the National Park Service did not like at all. But We got a lot heavy load on that. second
Well,
floor.
truly, and it would have been appropriate for the era and for the home. So we kind of talked them into that one. So yeah, that's actually the library bar with once again the other fireplace that had been completely stripped. That's the sun porch with a pretty terracotta floor. Beautiful windows. The leaded glass windows are all original. And the ceiling was kind of caving in on that one, but so this is actually one of the upstairs bedrooms. We call it the dogwood room, and we think it was probably a nursery. It's right off of adjacent to the bedroom, to the master bedroom. This is the one space where we took down a wall in the entire house between two small bedrooms and turned it into a very usable conference room space, boardroom.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we heard about the inspection department. Is there anything about our government, city or county that has made it particularly accommodating or not in the way and is our community unique or any other thing?
I think there's been a really healthy. Yeah. and Wanda before Jeff, like Lynette said, Wanda was a tremendous advocate for downtown and us specifically. So there's been a real, how can we get it done attitude from the city council and the mayor. It's very much on point. So that matrix, we're extremely fortunate. We've got to cultivate that and reinforce that. And I guess no one ever gets enough pats on the back. And, I left a meeting in Greensboro right before I came here, and we've got a really positive, inclusive, traversable kind of inspections in city government scene going on to make it better. Frankly, candidly, I think loosen some things up in regard to pinching pennies in the county, because you're investing in your future. And if you squeeze a nickel to say that it's just, we could open that up. So vote your heart on that stuff, like I have been. But yeah, we've got a really amazing community here. So we've got a good momentum. Just let's keep it going and acknowledge the successes. And one thing I would just say generally was the stuff we work on. We need to acknowledge all our successes. Let's not become a community that's risk averse. Because if we get in that mentality, then we're going to thwart that momentum. So some things fail. That's okay as long as it does so with the light shone on it. And we can all move on to the next thing. But we've got to make sure that we're not afraid to have some things that are risky and that might fail. And the inclusion of that, because if we, now that we've gotten so much success, if we price everyone out, and I'm a big fan of revolving loan funds. I'm a big fan of loans over grants. I'm a big fan of focusing on things that acknowledge the fact they need funding, and it doesn't need to be tons of money. It doesn't need to be these huge projects. I think aggregating a handful of small successes will get you a lot more bang than the big project. Even though the big project can be great, but so our big projects, I'm a fan of the Reynolds building and reusing and rehabbing, but we don't need to be the kind of community that has to build towers into the sky right now. That doesn't fit Winston-Salem, and that's fine. We don't need to be there. So that's let's just stay true to who we are, stay connected, and help the next guy up, and take a risk on someone and something, and we'll continue this climb of success, I think.
Unless we have more questions, I just want to thank you all for the questions. Thank you. I'm unless you have to fly away.